What if I told you one of the best tight ends in the 2027 draft class was a zero-star recruit and started his career at Dartmouth? Chris Corbo might not be a household name yet, but now that he is at Georgia Tech, we are about to find out if he is just an FCS success story or one of the biggest hidden gems in college football. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Draft Yoda, where we're data-driven and prospect-focused. As always, I am Draft Yoda himself, Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd. And today we're talking about Chris Corbo, tight end from Georgia Tech, currently holding a 9.04 out of 10, making him my number 34 overall prospect and my number 2 tight end in the 2027 class. And I already know right away what you're going to say. How is a transfer from Dartmouth already tied into? And that's exactly why this evaluation is so interesting to me. He's not a normal prospect profile. He's not your 5-star tight end, who went to a powerhouse, played right away, and became a national name. 0-star recruit, Ivy League football, FCS competition. But he was back-to-back first-team FCS All-American. Now that he's transferred to Georgia Tech, he steps into the ACC and gets a chance to prove that his traits translate to the Power Four. The whole evaluation is based off of one question. Is Chris Corbo a nice small school story, or is he a real NFL tight end hiding in plain sight? So let's hit you with some stats, right? Chris Corbo is 6'5", 257 pounds. Sounds like a tight end to me. 0-star recruit, no recruiting hype, no national spotlight, no major ranking buzz. He earned all division honors in New Jersey's Super Football Conference at West Essex. I think he had 32 receptions, 452 yards, and 5 touchdowns as a senior. But he also put up 112 tackles and 4 interceptions playing defense at the same time. The reason that matters to me is it tells me he's not just a big target. It tells me that he's a football player and he wants to be on the field. And then you add in the basketball background, because he was a 4-time first-team all-county basketball player, 3-time all-conference. He was the captain and an MVP in both football and basketball while he was in high school. And why that matters for the tight end evaluation is because tight ends with basketball backgrounds often, are outstanding in space, leverage, body control, and win through contact. They know how to box out defenders. They know how to high point a ball, and they know how to shed small players. That all matters when you're doing an evaluation. It also helps that his father and grandfather both played college football. So even if the recruiting services missed him, Draft Yoda didn't. Because I see the raw materials are there. I see the frame. I see the athletic background, the competitiveness. He just needed an opportunity, and that's what he got at Dartmouth. At Dartmouth, he didn't play as a true freshman. He did earn Dartmouth Scout Team Award, which doesn't mean much. But in 2023, he started getting involved. 9 catches, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. It wasn't massive production, but it was a starting point. 2024, 32 receptions, 315 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Also earned All-American recognition. And came back the next year and put up another 45 catches, 516 yards, and 4 touchdowns. again earning All-American recognition. He just continually builds on what he did the previous year. And I believe that 2 straight All-American selections is a trend. And I think he just needs one big year to be a breakout. You heard me say, 80, 86 total receptions, 912 yards, and 13 touchdowns at Dartmouth. That was on 113 targets. He also averaged 10.6 yards a reception. So he was productive and reliable. And he became one of the best tight ends at the FCS level. The big question is going to be, who is he at Georgia Tech, and can he step into the ACC? And, the transfer to Georgia Tech is the swing point in this evaluation. The tape is good, the production can be real, and the traits show up. But NFL teams are going to ask, can he separate against Power 4 linebackers? Can he block ACC defensive ends? Can he handle bigger safeties? That's why 2026 is everything for Chris Corbo. Georgia Tech gives him the platform, the ACC gives him the test. And if he passes it, his draft stock is going to move extremely quickly. NFL teams are always looking for tight ends who can stay on the field. And in this draft class in particular, a lot of these tight ends are receiving threats. Chris Corbo can set himself apart by showing he's also a solid blocker. It's that, at least that's what it's looked like from his time in Dartmouth, is he is a solid blocker. Now, what makes him special? Obviously, the size is a good piece of it. 6'5", 250 something pounds. He looks the part of an NFL tight end. And that's something you can't teach. And a lot of college tight ends right now are just big slots. They detach from the formation, they catch passes, they avoid the dirty work. Corbo has experience attached to the line. He has experience blocking, and he has experience working with real tight end alignments, which I think gives him a solid leg up in this class. Second thing is he has movability. Yes, he has all the experience of blocking from a traditional tight end point, but he also has the experience of standing up into more of a H-back position, and he moves well without the ball in his hand. He's not stiff. He's not lumbering through his routes. He can release off the line. He can separate enough to give the quarterback a target, and he understands how to find space, which is absolutely key. You don't have to be, Kenyon Sadiq and run the fastest 40 in the world to get separation. If you're big and know how to use it, you're able to do that. And that's what he showed at Dartmouth. And I hope that's what he's going to show at Georgia Tech to help prove me right for this. Third thing I really enjoy about him is the route foundation. His average depth of target was 9.2 yards at Dartmouth. What that tells me is he's not catching screens or short checkdowns. He's being used in an intermediate area. I've seen him run seams. I've seen him run crosses, hooks, overs, and routes that move the chains. That matters because tight ends who can live in the intermediate of the field are extremely valuable. They become a quarterback safety blanket. And with a draft class of this many quarterbacks, a tight end that can be your safety blanket from day one is a godsend. Another thing I really do like about him is his efficiency. He averaged 1.74 yards per route while at Dartmouth. So that means every time he ran a route, he may not have caught it, but every time he made a catch, he made it worth his while. And a tight end coming from an offense that, used him as an inline over 60% of the time, that's a strong number. It means he's not just on the field to block. He was producing when he was released into routes. You typically don't see a 1 in front of that number for inline tight ends. And that's why that's such a big thing for me. He's not only a blocker, he's also a piece of the passing game. And he has the foundation to become both a pass catcher and a blocker in the NFL. The biggest strength for him, from what I've seen so far, is his reliability. I said he was 86 out of, I think it was 100 and 113 targets. 86 out of 113 targets, you're going to think, okay, cool. He only had 3 drops. It means all the others were straight misses for him. If it was close enough for him to catch, he caught it all but 3 times. That is outstanding. Shows that he can work in traffic. It shows he can catch the ball over the middle, and he can catch contested passes. 9 contested catches this last season, and I think a lot of that has to do with the basketball background. He knows how to use his body. He wins through contact. He finishes the catch. And especially in the red zone and on third down when the windows aren't clean, that's super, super valuable for a tight end and a tight end in the league. I've said it before, he's a solid blocker. He's a reliable blocker. And I'm to the point with tight ends that I would like to make 2 different tight end slots. One a big slot and the other an actual tight end, because it is getting to the point where some of these tight ends don't show blocking ability at all. And Corbo does. He shows it when he's in line. He shows it when they flex him out. They move when they have him on a move across the formation. He showed it there. And that's going to give Georgia Tech flexibility with him on the field and that running game behind it. And he's going to give NFL teams something to work with when he's on their field. He's not a dominant people mover yet, but he was at Dartmouth. Not saying anything negative about Dartmouth, but their weight program isn't the best. He's going to add weight. He's going to add mass. And I think both those things are going to help him and become more of a dominant people mover for blocking, because he is willing and he understands positioning and he has enough size that I think he's going to develop into a very good blocker at the next level. My big question, the big question everybody's going to have, is he Cole? Is it Cole or is it a Diamond? He shined at Dartmouth, but Dartmouth is not Georgia Tech. Dartmouth is not the NFL. If Corbo goes to Georgia Tech and looks like the same player in the ACC that he did at Dartmouth, the NFL is going to notice, and they're going to notice fast, because 6'5", 250-something pound tight ends who can block, catch, separate, and win contested catches don't stay hidden forever. Hell, I found him. And I don't have near the financial resources that NFL teams have. I also don't understand, somebody's going to ask me, why is he tight end 2? If I'm this in love with him, why is he tight end 2? And it's simply because Trey'Dez Green is a rare specimen. Trey'Dez is is exactly what you want, minus the blocking from a tight end coming out of college. That's the one thing Trey'Dez needs to work better on, is blocking. But, Trey'Dez he's a big guy, basketball background, red zone ability, a true receiving weapon, and he's a profile that's hard to ignore. Corbo is right behind him, and his inline usage and his blocking value give him a leg up on the guys behind them. Nobody's perfect, though. We will always say that nobody's perfect. One thing I want to see him do outside of the competition jump is show his athletic ability a little bit more. Because the question is whether his athletic ability is good enough to become a difference maker and not just a solid player. I like the movement skills. I like the release. I like the separation. But now we need to see it against better defenders. Can he separate against ACC linebackers? Can he threaten safeties? Can he create the mismatch problems? Can he be a reliable chain mover in the ACC? That's a big question that I want to see answered. 2026 season is enormous for Chris Corbo. This is his proving ground. Georgia Tech gives him the opportunity to show the country that the Dartmouth production was not just a small school dominance, that he can prove he's a Power 4 tight end. He can prove he can be an ACC weapon, and he can prove that he can block, separate, and win contested catches against bigger and faster defenders. If he does that, he becomes one of the biggest risers in the entire 2027 class. Because tight end is a position where players can rise very fast. One strong year against real competition can change everything for them, especially when the size and production are already in place. Can Chris Corbo climb higher than tight end 2? Yes, absolutely. He can be one of the biggest risers in this draft. And it's going to take him coming out at Georgia Tech and really putting up some numbers. But he can do it. When you're talking about a 6'5", 250-something pound Power 4 tight end with All-American production, reliable hands, blocking ability, and NFL size, those players get drafted. And if the tape is strong enough, the players go earlier than people expect. I've got him in the 9.04, making him my number 34 overall prospect, number 2 tight end in his class. He has the size, he has the hands, he has the blocking foundation, the basketball background, the production, the All-American resume, and now he has the opportunity. The only thing that's missing is the Power 4 proof, and that's what 2026 is about. If Corbo goes to Georgia Tech and proves that Dartmouth tape translates to the ACC, he won't be a secret for very long. But because you listen to this, you'll be one of the first people around the water cooler that'll know his name. What do you think about Chris Corbo? Is he one of the biggest sleepers in college football? Can he prove himself at Georgia Tech to climb into the tight end 1 conversation? Where would you rank him in the 2027 NFL draft class? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoy these player evaluations, we build them on film and analytics. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, so we're going to keep putting in the work. Our goal is to have over 100 prospects by the time college football kicks off this year in our preseason rankings. So stay tuned. As always, I'm Draft Yoda, Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd, and we'll see you guys next time.